All right, power rankings for the NFL teams post-draft, and you might be wondering, wait a second, you already have the power rankings up there. What are you doing, spoiling the video already? No, that's not what I'm doing. In fact, these were the power rankings. This is where I had each team prior to the draft, and so I figured this could be an interesting way to kind of go through it one by one and see which teams do I feel better about and which teams do I feel worse about post-draft, and this is simply for 2023, and the way I evaluate it is how likely are you to, win a Super Bowl that tends to be what I'm looking for here. So the D teams that I just feel like probably won't be great this year. So first, the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals did a lot of good stuff in the draft to prepare for the future, but for this following year, I still don't feel great about them. They are still going to be in D tier for me. But I think the Texans and Colts, I might put them both up from the D tier to the C tier simply because they both have young quarterbacks who you can feel very optimistic about heading into the following season. I think that, again, will either one of them be great right away? I don't think so. I think they're both projects in their own right, to varying degrees. Certainly Richardson more so than Stroud, but that little glimmer of hope and that little chance of potentially one of those quarterbacks could go off, I'll move them up a tier. And again, this is just how I view it right now. I'm sure, a couple months, once I really take a deep dive into all of these teams, I'll feel differently about some of this. But for now, that's how I view it. The Washington football team, I think I'm going to keep them in C tier. I feel like they were fine this draft. I thought they got fair value. They did reach on every single pick according to the consensus big board, but a couple other picks I actually kind of understood. The Buccaneers, again, feel like C tier. They don't have the quarterback, so I can't put them that much higher, but they have a pretty good roster outside of that. So I'm just going to go sort of backwards here to make it work. The Raiders here, again, feel like they, did some nice things in this draft class. Again, it depends on how much you love, I'm blanking on his name now, the edge rusher they drafted, Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher they drafted early on. How much you love him will kind of depend on how much you value their draft. But either way, I think that, I thought they had a good draft, but I don't know if they're totally moving the needle this following season. The Rams, I like what the Rams did a lot. I'm still going to keep them in C tier, but I did like what they did a lot in terms of just getting a ton of picks. They got 14 picks and could have a lot of value this next, season. The Packers here, Packers had a bit of an odd draft, and again, you have pieces, they have stars. Their defense was very underwhelming last year, but I still feel like they belong in C tier just because of the potential pieces, and again, who knows what we're going to get out of Jordan Love. Didn't love their draft personally. I'm not a huge Lucas Van Ness guy, although he totally fits what the Packers were trying to do, but again, another one that unfortunately I am just going to have sit here for now at least. Denver, again, it all comes down to Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. What are they going to do? So that's why they're C tier. Can't really move them, I don't think, given what, they barely drafted. So what are you going to do with them? The Bears, didn't love the Bears draft, to be honest. I thought it was a reach getting the tackle they got at number 10. I thought that you could have gotten Peter Skoronski, who I think is a better offensive lineman. But again, their whole future really relies on Justin Fields. I don't think that they move the needle too much one way or the other for me. The Falcons, though, this is a team, the one team in C tier I am going to drop down to D tier, the one team I've moved, period, here, because to be honest, I just didn't love the Bijan Robinson pick. I think he'll help them in the short term, and so maybe getting him out of putting them to D tier isn't totally fair, because I do think that there's things that he'll help with, but I think the fact that they really didn't attack that quarterback position at all, really, and seem to be content with Desmond Ridder next year, to me feels like a potential disaster and something that could, it'll hurt them this following year, I think. I could be wrong. Maybe if he takes a step forward, you'll feel better about it, and then you have Bijan Robinson, you have these weapons, you feel good. I've been wrong before, certainly. I would have had the Seahawks in Tier D had I done this last year, and they made the playoffs. So we'll see if the Falcons can follow that trend. Patriots here. I like the Patriots draft. I don't know if I like it enough to move it up to B tier, to A tier, but I like their draft. I thought they did some good stuff. The Saints, on the other hand, was I shouldn't say on the other hand, it was a fine draft. Like Brian Brisey, I know how to say it. I'm in my own head at this point on how to say his name. Thought that was a solid pick. They got A.T. Perry, who I really like. They got him in round 6. I don't know how he fell that far. So it wasn't like a great draft, but it was a fine draft. I thought they got their value personally. But again, I don't know how I can move them out of B tier. And kind of same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the Kenny Pickett. They have Kenny Pickett, so that's why they're here, because I think that he could take a next step forward, and they have a lot of talent around him, and I thought they had a good draft on top of it. Now, one of the issues that is the case is that there are 2 first-rounders that people are, or I guess there are 2 top 32 picks, I should say, because one of them was picked 32, but that's technically a second-rounder in this draft. People really loved, but I just wasn't as big of a fan of those 2 players as some other people were. Now, I still love what they did. I still love the value they got, but I'm just not quite as high on it as some other people are, because those weren't my guys necessarily, but still like their value, and maybe they're a B+ now, but I'm still going to save them and not put them into the A tier for me. Next up, the Carolina Panthers, who I put in B tier because we knew they were going to get Bryce Young, or at least a quarterback when they traded up, because this was, after the trade itself. So, no real changes there for me. The Cleveland Browns, I thought made the most of their draft capital, but again, didn't have much draft capital. Not too much you can do. The Titans, again, like what they did, and this is kind of interesting. It's interesting. I thought there was going to be a lot more changes when I initially started doing this, but, so far, not so much. The Titans, I did like what they did, though. I thought that they got a couple, I thought Will Levis is very fascinating to me. Not going to change much this year, but for the future, I really like it. And Peter Skoronski, my number 1 offensive lineman, and he just fell to them at 11. So certainly like that. The Giants are here in the B tier, which my gut says feels a little bit high for the Giants, putting them in B tier. But they have great coaching, and I still like what they did with the draft. So I'm not gonna shift that too much one way or the other. Seattle, I think we're going to have another change. Let's bump up Seattle to A tier, why don't we? Because I did really like what they did. The Devin Witherspoon and the Jackson Smith and Jigba selections in particular, I think could completely change the dynamic of this team, which was already a good team. I mean, there is a possibility that this team has an elite passing attack and an elite secondary next year. And if they do that, they are at least a fringe contender, and they belong in A tier if they can make that happen. And if I had to guess, I'd guess there's a very good chance that happens. So yeah, A tier for me personally. And then let's just go down the line. The Ravens, I'm going to bump the Ravens up to S tier. I really am. Because what we know now is that they signed Lamar Jackson, so long term. So to me, that puts them in S tier. Also, you have I can't remember if the Odell Beckham Jr. Selection happened before or after that, but they also added Zay Flowers, who I think should fit that offense incredibly. So they really needed receivers. They finally have them. To me, this is an S tier style draft. The Cowboys, I'm tempted to drop the Cowboys a little bit. I didn't hate their draft, but I didn't love it either. And I think they were kind of a fringe A team to begin with. Could have been argued B team. But you know what? I look at the teams that are in B and the teams that are in A. They belong much more in A than they do in B, I think. So I'm going to keep them A, but maybe an A- now as opposed to just a straight up A. The Lions. Yeah, I'm dropping the Lions for sure. I think the question is, do I drop them 1 spot or 2 spots? B tier, I think B tier is right. They're not C tier. They're better than that. But I really thought they didn't take advantage of the draft capital they had in front of them. I think they got 2 players. Gibbs and Campbell will help them for sure, but they're not the most important positions. And how good are they going to be at those respective positions also? Are they both going to be superstars? I don't think so. I'd be surprised. I think they could both be very good players, and I think they were going to be 2 starters for, I could see them both being 10-year starters, but that might be it. And for the draft capital they had, I just didn't think they made the most of it personally. And do I think that they can compete with a team like, looking up there, like a team like Dallas? To me, I would take Dallas over Detroit right now, whereas if you asked me prior to the draft, I definitely would have taken Detroit. So just a bit underwhelming, and I know I'm not the only person who feels that way, but, there are some people who disagree. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Didn't have a ton to do in this draft, but, again, I thought that they did some solid things. Anton Harrison's not a tackle I personally get. He's just one of those guys I wasn't really sure what why everyone was so high on him. But that's just a me thing. That's my evaluation. A lot of people liked him. So, 27, that's totally fine value and is a position of need. They could use some help on the offensive line. Not really moving the needle too strong one way or the other, though. They remain an A tier. The Chargers, I'm wondering, do I put the Chargers up to S tier potentially? Because I really love the Quinnen Williams pick. I think that could help them out a ton. And I think that, having a third option could really make this offense work. So sure, why not? Let's have some fun with it. Let's put the Chargers in S tier. We have way too many teams in S tier. I might have to bump some down back to A tier after I'm done with this. But, Seahawks we already went over. They are in A tier. So those are only the 4 teams in A tier, but we still have other teams to talk about. Again, Cincinnati, I didn't think moved the needle too much one way or the other. I thought, like getting Myles Murphy, that feels like solid value there. I thought that what they did was good, but it's not moving the needle. Certainly not bringing them down a spot. 49ers barely drafted, so they drafted a kicker. Okay, is that a smart strategy? I'll let you talk about it, but I didn't hate what they did. The Bills, I really liked what they did, but they're already in S tier, so can't change them there. And the Chiefs, I actually didn't love what the Chiefs did this draft. I haven't loved what the Chiefs have done this offseason, but they have Patrick Mahomes, they have the stars, there's still so many talented young players on that roster. They're still easily S tier, no doubt about that. And the Dolphins. I thought the Dolphins had a really good draft. I really did. I thought the Dolphins deserved to be in S tier, and I think that they added some talent, which, for the only 4 selections they had, they made the most of at least the first 2, I thought, with A-Chain and Cam Smith. The Jets. The Jets they had an underwhelming draft. They're kind of the one team that was originally in S tier that you could talk me out of and maybe try to, they definitely, I think, took a step back in this draft class. I didn't love the Will McDonald selection. I didn't have him as a first rounder. So, again, I didn't have 31 first rounders in this draft class, but I had 15 and he was selected at 15. So, I had more than 15. I had like 27, I believe. So, it would have been nice if for me, I would have liked it more had they gone a different route. They kind of drafted similar to how the Packers tend to draft, interestingly enough. So, still like the Jets. You could talk me out of S tier, but they still got Aaron Rodgers. They still have a great young secondary. They're still S tier for me. And then finally, the Eagles, again, totally S tier. These are, that's the team that, they almost won a Super Bowl, and then I declared them winners of the draft right after it happened. So, yeah, they're S tier. If they were already in S tier and I thought they had the best draft, they're still in S tier. So, again, this is the overall S tier. I almost feel like I need an extra tier now. Maybe I screwed this up because there's so many S tier teams. We have 1, 2, 3. So we have 9 total S tier teams. But these are teams I feel like, I don't know, they feel like legit championship contenders, these 9 teams. Teams that I could easily see, making something happen. There's a couple you could talk me out of. I think you could talk me out of the Jets. You could talk me out of the Dolphins. You could talk me out of the Chargers, potentially. If I had to, and maybe even Ravens. If I had to make an S plus tier, it'd probably be the top 4 in Philadelphia as those. And then Baltimore, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Jets would be in the sort of the S minus tier. That's kind of how I would view that. But still, here, I can probably even make it work. There you go. Top 5 are the ones that are the S plus tier, bottom 4 to S minus tier, but they're all still in the same tier. Those are the teams that I feel like are legit championship contenders. These next 4 other teams, like, I could see it. I could see it happening, but I'm not. I feel like someone would have to have a breakout year that I've never heard of for it to really happen. They feel, to me, more like teams that I could see easier squeaking into the conference championship, but fully getting to a Super Bowl would be a little tough. The Jaguars, maybe you could talk me into S tier. And then the B tier teams, those are like the teams that feel like playoff teams, but I don't know if they feel like too much more than that. C tier are the competitive teams, but I'm not expecting, some of them could get into the playoffs. One of them, some of them probably will, but probably won't do much once they get there. And the D tier teams are teams that I think that I can't envision a world where they win a Super Bowl. I guess unless Desmond Ridder starts playing elite football all of a sudden, and the defense, a lot of those young players all of a sudden step up and start playing elite football. And then for Arizona, they just have so many holes. That's why those teams are D tier. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion on it right now. Like I said, I would have had Seattle in D tier last year, and look where they're at. So who knows with this stuff. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.